Hey everyone, it is Wednesday, June 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern, and this is our first of two legacy circle calls for this month. Got Iris and Penny here, and I didn't have any kind of real presentation for today. I do have some things that I can share, just some alternative approaches to kind of this whole idea of getting closer to and clear about what you want in the second half of life. But I thought that maybe the room will determine what we talk about. So I thought we'd just start with a kind of a check-in. So um, where are you? Where are you in this process of getting clearer about what you really want in your life's next chapter, and if you're not clear at all, that's absolutely fine. Where are you at in terms of strategy, in terms of how you're going about getting closer to. So I think I always pick on, well, it's you two are the two I pick on most. So I'm going to let you two decide who goes first.
Go for it, Penny.
No, I was great. Well, I have more of an idea of, well, oh, there's Jeff. I have more of an idea. Do you want to say something to Jeff before I dig in?
No, I've got nothing to say to that guy. Go ahead. He'll catch up, and he'll catch up or catch on, or he won't.
Okay. Well, the kind of offer that I'm offering keeps changing a little bit, but and some of that is as I talk to people, a lot of people I can see think that they're where I am, but they don't know how to do it. So they're just saying a similar thing to what I'm just saying. And for too big an organization with fundraisers, I really have to position it in a way that people, which you've said, and I've tried, but to position it where people are curious enough to explore in a more serious way to do it. And I got into this talk with this woman yesterday who had been connected with me by Annette Mason, who I know some of us here know her. And she's starting an organization. She does need to fundraise, but she was so far off. She had been so focused. She's the founder right now. She's really hasn't got any staff, and she's fundraising basically just for money. And so I went through all her attitudes, and we were going to have a 30-minute call that turned out 2 hours, but I really dug in with her to help her, and it was good for me because I got to have a conversation that I wouldn't have. And I think I positioned her in a place where she can start. She wanted to talk to me again, and that's fine. But I wanted to see if she can move forward based on what we've had. And I'm saying this just because this has been my big conversation this week. And I just realized how far that people are from really creating change. It's like you'd rather bitch about it than you would actually do stuff to change. So
people wanting to complain rather than actually do the work. I've not encountered that.
I know, it's a big discovery. And she wanted to set another time in a couple of weeks, and I said, let's wait. We've just talked about a lot today. I like to have you take what time it takes to process and write and think about. I gave her the 3 questions that we talked about, and talked to her to some extent what kind of thinking she needed to do to develop answers. And I said, you know, when you get ready, I said, it might be 2 weeks, it might be a month, who knows? And I just wanted to leave her on her own because there was a lot we talked to that she's going to have to shift. And she was it seemed to me that she was really very appreciative. She started to cry. And I think part of it was just where she is. And she started to feel like there was some place that she could start. You know, I think she got ground. I think that's what some of it was. And so that's been my big experience this week, is just kind of going through something. And she's got a mission I would love to help her with. She's a Black woman working with Black people, wanting money from white people, which I said, you know, you're going to get it, but not today, you know. And she wants to be able to help Black people to lift themselves, and the reparation for the Black history and recognition for where they've come from, and is really her long-term vision.
Well, I hope that you get a chance to talk to Nikki again, and share this conversation. But just, I want to provide a little context for anybody that might be watching on the replay. So in terms of, you know, kind of your encore and life endeavor, you have a business called Renewable Philanthropy. Mission-centered fundraising is the approach. And so you appear to have a great deal of clarity about what you're, you know, what you want to be doing. And right now you're closing the gap on, you know, getting closer to creating a sustainable business by actually getting paid clients. And so,
Right.
And, you know, for anybody that's watching, Penny and I have been working together for several years now, and she is really rocking it. If you don't follow her on LinkedIn or Facebook, you ought to, because she's doing some really amazing work. So I appreciate that catch up. So Jeff, we're just kind of touching base on where we're at in terms of the second half of life journey. If we have some clarity about what we want to be when we grow up without growing up, and if we have any kind of strategy for how we're getting there. And of course, any answer, all answers are valid and helpful. So with that, we'll go to Iris, and then we can circle back to Jeff.
Okay. Well, I think the last time we were together, we're still working on the irresistible offer. And I was pushing on that so hard that I wound up having like nightmares about it. So I'm like, okay, that's a sign, back off. You know, you're obviously obsessing. So I did back off, and Penny and I had a wonderful conversation. I've had some others. I'm trying to describe still exactly what do I do. I do know now that I'm a multimodal creative. I don't just do one thing, and multimodal, maybe digital creative, where it can be a logo to a slide deck, to a pitch deck, to, in-service pieces. It doesn't matter what I'm packaging up. I also know that perhaps Penny can validate this or not, that I somehow am able to transfer enthusiasm for when the other person is entering or looking at their valley of despair. So, you know, when you're having a conversation, there's always this looming thing that they want to do, but they're kind of dragging their feet about it. And I think perhaps I'm able to allow them to see the valley and then enter it enthusiastically. So that's where I'm at.
Nice. So you are like Penny, your encore endeavor is a business.
I'm an LLC, and for now, I'm just really giving away free design. So it's an offer to everyone here of what I've realized is if you give me permission and I design something for you, you're going to see something that I couldn't have described. And then from there, you know, okay, you trust me now?
Yeah. And just again, for people that are watching, that are in the Art of Encore Living community, some of what we're referencing is actually about a call that we had with Laurel Portier in the coaching business prescription community, which is all about helping businesses, online businesses, coaches in particular, but really any online business, craft an irresistible offer, find an eager audience, and create a 30-minute a day sales strategy that connects that offer with that audience. And you shared something that I want to circle back to, because it's a subject near and dear to my heart, Iris. But first, we'll check in with Jeff.
Oh no, circle back with Iris first.
Who's got no business like show business. I think just out of fairness, Jeff, I mean, you're because I think it's helpful to see that not everyone necessarily is trying to create a brand new business in the second half of life. So
Okay.
share a little bit about what you're
Given
doing.
that, I'll talk. I am in the process of writing some stories. I gave it up for a while and I'm back to doing it. So I'm very happy and actually proud of that I'm working at least 30 minutes to an hour a day on stories that I wish to be my legacy, wish to put out in the world. One of them is fiction and one of them is nonfiction. So I'm writing a memoir about myself because according to my sisters, I've led a very interesting life. And I'm also writing a fiction story that is not quite dystopian, but is a little sci-fi-ish.
Nice. So what I love about what Jeff brings into the conversation is, unlike Penny and Iris, who are building businesses, which is a fantastic thing to do, Jeff is leaning more into a kind of a passion project, as a way of engaging with the second half of life and living his legacy in a different way. Although I think, Jeff, if I remember correctly, that one of your books may actually end up being published, which means that if you don't get rich, you may still get famous.
Okay, I'll take it.
So Jerry, welcome.
I just want the book tour.
That's right. I just want to go on a book tour. I just want to hit every Barnes and Nobles in between
Right.
here and Paducah. So
Yeah.
Jerry, we're just kind of catching just a short catch up, just kind of where you're at in your encore life endeavor, whatever that might be. You want to give us a little slice?
Yeah, well, I apologize, I'm late. I must have had one too many beers down at the restaurant last night. But yeah, as you know, I'm finding my way again, because I just suddenly found a passion to get back into producing content and finding my way into what my, as we say, playing a game. What runway do I want to run? What game do I want to play? And one of the things that I discovered is, like you, Scott, you're like all of us, there are people out there that wish to fulfill things within their life, and we want to facilitate that. And we've all got a special power. And as I've mentioned in the past, I've managed a satellite campus. I've helped in the franchising industry and the manufacturing industry and dairy industry, and I've helped people achieve beyond what they've ever thought possible. And I believe I can continue to do that. And so that's what I'm focused on at the moment.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, and I love that. What's interesting to me about your share, Jerry, is, oftentimes when we think about what we're going to do in the second half of life, at least in my experience, a lot of the people that I work with are like, I don't want to do anything like what I did to make a living. But you actually had some experiences in making a living that gave you skills that that feel like they're fulfilling, and you're baking those into, this kind of next step, this next chapter, which is fantastic. And just a reminder that, when you're thinking about what's next, it helps to take a long look at, everything that you've done up until this point, and get some clear about like, what are the things I would never want to do again, or I want to stop doing, and what are the things that I wish I had done more of, and that sort of thing. So what I thought I would just share a little bit about today is, when we're talking about, in the art of encore living, we call it the difference only you can make. Like, this is our chance to tap into our inherent gift. And I frame it as the difference only you can make. Some people would call it your soul's true calling. Some people would call it your purpose. Others might call it your passion. And these are all words that we can use interchangeably, but it's helpful, I think, to kind of define your terms. And I think purpose is one that I shared on social media recently. I've worked with two I've tried, so my brand is Creative on Purpose. So obviously purpose is something that I think about. At various times, I've been building something around this idea of purpose, and the coaches I had at the times both told me nobody wants to talk about purpose. And I actually listened to them and set something aside and built something that was more practical or more marketable, saleable. And what I have found is that when I ignored these coaches and actually started talking about the thing that I actually want to talk about, turns out there are people that want to talk about it. And of course, some of it is branding and messaging and positioning and all that. So undeniably, Simon Sinek has, with his start with why, and then find your why, he has made, a very good living, maybe in part because of his background as a barrister and a marketer, around this idea of why. And so when I think about what purpose is, I think of, there's who you are, and then what the difference you can make. So purpose for me is your reason for being. And I am a fan of Simon Sinek, and there are elements of his approach that I really disagree with, not because they're wrong, but because it's positioned as this absolute formula that, and if you listen to him on YouTube or on any of his keynotes, he talks about this. Your why was fully formed and fixed by the time you were in your mid-20s or in your early 20s, and it can never change. And I say, okay, I mean, for like maybe the 3% of people that really feel like at an early age that they can identify what they were put on this earth to do and can build a enterprise around that, that's fantastic. In my experience, people in midlife had this, just to reference some of what Jerry was saying, they've played the game of life by the rules that society provided. Go to school, get good grades, go to another school, get good grades, get a good job, get a raise, move yourself up the ladder along the way, get a spouse, have some kids, buy a house, blah, 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 blah. And at some point, oftentimes, it can be through a crisis. It doesn't have to be, but there's a moment in midlife where we say, why am I not happy? I did exactly what I was told to do, and I did it really well. I'm winning the game of life, but I don't feel happy. I don't feel like I'm winning. And so what happens is you know, it's because we have had absolutely no training in this idea of identifying your purpose or even defining what purpose is. People end up feeling lost, alone, adrift. You know, if you've never read Dante's Commedia, I mean, it's a book about this, and that book is a perennial seller because it talks about something that's really important. So for those that could use some help getting close to what the difference only you can make, or your life's purpose going forward, or could use some help clarifying that, I just, you know, we have a process in the Art of Encore Living around identifying who you are, what you're good at, and where you belong. What are your values and guiding principles, your vision of the world that you would like to live in or co-create, your innate talents, the things that you've always had a natural inclination for, the things that have always kind of lit you up, along with maybe some of the hard skills you learned in skills and on the job that helped light you up, and the soft skills that you've been honing ever since you exited the womb around connection, communication, collaboration, creativity. And then find your belonging. You belong with people who share your values and need your talents to enhance their lives, because your life will be enhanced through the difference that you help others make in their lives. To Simon's point, I think an archaeological dig of your past is a great idea. You will see themes in your life, activities that, you know, consistently lit you up, talents, skills that gave you a great deal of meaning. But you know, what you're going to do with these going forward is probably going to look very different than what you've been doing up to this point. So this whole idea of how do you craft something, like how do you dial in this idiosyncratic gift of yours, and Iris was talking about her challenge with really dialing in her irresistible offer around this, and then, you know, what do you do with this, you know, once you get it. So I think it's possible to close the gap. So, you know, I always joke around that my path to what I'm doing now, and something that I find profoundly fulfilling, that I have turned into a profitable enterprise. When I look at what it took to create that, it was not a tango, it was not a waltz, it was a slam dance. I called it thrashing my way to clarity, a very extended period of time of trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do. But I think it's possible to help people find their rhythm sooner by getting clear. It all begins with know thyself. So my argument with Simon's approach is starting with why without knowing who you are is probably going to create more friction than it is actually going to help catalyze your progress. If you don't know who you really are, what you're really good at, and where you really belong, you probably can't actually, I think it's challenging to find your why. So that's my little riff rant about, like, you know, just thinking about these things. And then the thing I wanted to circle back on with that Iris talked about, like this idea of doing things for people and not charging for it. And Penny has experienced this as well. I'm taking a course by Jack Butcher, who is the founder of Visualize Value. And if you're not familiar with that platform, it's got a really interesting way of helping brands in a very simple image articulate to an audience exactly what they do, what they can expect, you know, if they work with them. And he talks about this idea called permissionless apprenticeship. And I love this idea of, and I've heard this and articulated in other ways, but Jack has a great way of naming things. This idea of, this time that you spend online, this time that you spend in communities where your people are, where you suspect your people are, or the kind of people you think you might want to work, the idea of just without any expectation, pitch, or anything, just delivering value. So Laurel talked about this. Solve 100 people's problems. You will get much better at solving problems, and you will get much clearer about the kind of problems that you are good at solving and the kind of problems that you want to solve. And so I wanted to circle back on that, Iris, just because I think there is a lot of value in doing the thing that you want to do for free until it makes sense to do it, do it for pay. And strategically, if you can figure out how to turn those opportunities into social proof, testimonials, building a portfolio, all those things, it can really help. So I'm going to hit the pause button there just to see if any of that resonates. If you have any questions, if you have any additions, or if you want to push back and defend Simon, you're welcome to do that too.
Yeah, well, having an identity crisis is really what you're speaking about, that you have to know what you're all about before you can do your why. I totally buy into your rant. I love it. And yeah, I mean, it's about, as Penny had her great conversation and and it went from half an hour to 2 hours. It's the same thing on my end. Yeah, okay, I have an LLC. It doesn't need to make $100,000. I can operate it as a for-profit nonprofit. Maybe Penny and I can have a conversation about that sometime, because I am trying to build community. That is one of the things I have figured out. My community is artists. I'm doing a new logo for the new art space on Main Street. It's also downtown retail. I'm doing a how-to piece for the gal downstairs about how to water the air plants when you buy them. So wherever I see a piece where I can see like 3 levels higher, I'm jumping in, and hopefully they give me permission to say, yes, you may jump in. Because that is the one key thing is I do need permission. That is the one thing I have figured out. I need to be enthusiastic about it. I need to be able to see it. And then I need the permission.
I love it. Yeah, just a side note. Visualize Value has this course on permissionless apprenticeship available for $1 right now. So if not that you should necessarily be acquiring more knowledge, but if that idea sounds good. So you touched on a couple things that I think are worth teasing apart a little bit more, Iris. And I love that you mentioned identity crisis, because I think that is very much what is happening in that midlife moment when we can't figure out, like, I don't really even know who I am, and I'm very unsure about who I want to become. And it is very easy, and I see this so often with clients, to fall into what I call the identity trap. So we think we are what we do. And if you were a teacher, then you think you're a teacher. And if you're an engineer, you think you're an engineer. Now, I'm not saying that what you do for a living can't be absolutely closely tied to your identity, but often it is not, and it certainly is not the whole picture. Who you is what your values are, your values in action, the quality of your character and your virtue. Do your day-to-day interactions and activities actually align with the things that you espouse to be, your values? And I think one of the hardest parts about the midlife moment is opening the loops around identity and being willing to let go of identities that no longer serve us or no longer really reflect who we are or seek to become, and to explore the edges of your understanding and abilities by doing things that you haven't done before, by doing things that where there's a lot of uncertainty and possibility for quote unquote failure. Because what you're doing is you're stepping, part of this process, I think, is you're stepping into, I call it stepping into your becoming. And just to circle back to the purpose thing, there is this idea that your purpose is fully like, one of the things that Simon says that I really actually completely believe in is that we're all born sufficient and whole. I believe that to be true, that we actually are born possessing everything we need to thrive, after our survival needs are taken care of. My disagreement is that we are also born fully formed and fixed around our purpose. And I think that can be, I think that purpose is more for me, again, and just an alternative approach. If the start with why thing hasn't worked for you is, what if instead of being a fully formed and fixed thing, purpose was an emergent thing that you clarified and honed and stepped into by bringing purpose into everything you do. And sometimes when I talk about this approach with clients that are really struggling with what they're doing for a living, and they would love to just quit it and start this brand new thing, it's like, please don't do that, because it's going to take a while, to figure out who you really are, what you're really good at, where you really belong, and then build it into something that replaces your current income. But it could also be a really dangerous thing to do. There's plenty of people that have taken a passion, turned it into their job, and only to find that they turned something that they loved into something that they hated. But if purpose becomes a process, then as we explore that and bring a lot of integrity and intention into figuring out who we really are and what we want to be when we grow up without growing up, we actually become happier people, building new skills and building a new identity that when we bring it to our existing day job, we actually start to find that, because we are building new skills and using new skills in a new context, in a new place, that suddenly the day job doesn't seem so bad, and that we can continue to do the work we have to do to make a living with a little bit more joy and equanimity, while we also find fulfillment and meaning in making a difference in this other enterprise that we're kind of building alongside it. So just another little referente today, but sorry about that.
Yeah, I think Iris hit it on the head with the word identity. We've just been dancing around, identifying, doing an archaeological dig, but the word identity is the key word. I've been reading a couple of books in the past few days this week on Aboriginal culture in Australia, and particularly the young men. In New Zealand, we've got the Māori Indigenous community. Years ago, there was a movie called Once Were Warriors, and it followed the guy's life, alcoholism, domestic abuse, that was his life, and that sort of thing. And then, struggling to find his core identity, who he is. But in Australia in particular, they've got over 100 years of slaughter and oppression, that has continued on to today. And what has happened, all of the social ills that is accompanied with the dominant culture, repressing the natural one. And it's it all comes back to that keyword identity. You know, once you restore, you know, the respect within, you know, the identity of who a warrior or, you know, an Indigenous leader or man or woman, you know, in those cultures, all of the social ills kind of disappear, you know, and we've been sold, you know, like you mentioned before, the education route, you know, and you really got to get back into discovering who you are as an individual, your core purpose, which is bigger than, you know, just material wealth, you know. So
Yeah. There's, I think I shared this here before, but you know, this idea of sometimes to step into a more ideal identity, we have to let go of some elements of our identity, you know, up to this point. And there's good research and science now about inherited, you know, the identities and the elements of identity that we inherit, you know, for generations. And then I think there's also this idea that you're speaking to, Jerry, where, you know, we have the same thing going on in the United States, not just with historic treatment of African Americans in this society, but you know what we did to the indigenous people here. And there is a lot to be, I mean, I remember very clearly having a history professor talk about this idea. Like if you know, some kid said, that happened a long time ago and it has nothing to do with me. I didn't mistreat any Black people or Indians. And he ripped this kid a new hole right there in class. I think it was in the like 8th or 9th grade, because you know there is historic cultural responsibility we do, because you know we're kind of in it right now. So I love that you kind of wove that in.
yeah, it's not our fault because we grow up, you know, with what we're being told, you know, because the victor writes a history, you know, and we just don't know what we don't know, and it's not until you know, because the revelations. I was, you know, a few weeks ago, I was in one camp, you know, and so until you read a few books and think, oh, perhaps I better show a little respect and just find out about, you know, this other point of view, you know, and now, you know, it's certainly a revelation to me, you know, so, and that has compounded my purpose. You know, so there's a lot of knowledge, traditional knowledge, you know, you could call it indigenous science, you know, they've lived on the planet, you know, for what we can verify, which is probably 100,000 years in Australia, and they've looked after the planet, you know, intertwined cohesively, haven't done any damage to it, and sophisticated political, legal systems, you know, and you know, it's amazing what you find out. But I think, you know, in terms of identity, these communities go through initiation rites. And when a young man goes through an initiation rite from boy to man, they realize that they're not anything special, but they are part of something extremely special, you know, and that's what they learn. They learn, you know, to get rid of their youth, you know, their invincibility, you know, and they learn to become a man, you know, and their core identity, and they find their purpose within the clan and their life, you know, they find meaning, and like the celestial bodies, you know, they navigated the globe through, you know, through what they've learned, and you know, the Pacifica people, the formation of the waves, the wind, birds, stars, you know, navigated the globe, you know, so.
Yeah, love it. Jeff, Penny, anything to weave in?
Well, I believe that, to further what Jerry was saying, unless you're exposed to it, you don't know what you don't know. As we are learning as children, you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? They want to be a teacher or an astronaut or some fictional big thing, or they want to be what they know, which is a teacher. And until they're finally exposed to other things, they can't know what avenues would become open to them. So first you have to learn who you are, as you said, because that gives you the value structure in order to reach out and step off the ledge and figure out what to do. And then you have to figure out what is actually available that I don't know about, and try to know what you don't know. And that's a really difficult thing because you don't know where to begin. So you begin, perhaps like Jerry began by reading books. Well, I also began by reading books, and there are many ways to do it now, given the world of the Google. There are 1,000 ways to learn about these things that you don't know, because you can now pursue passion just trying to understand stuff. You don't have to follow it through to the very end, to the nth degree, but you learn about it, you learn enough about it so that you have some kind of understanding, and then you can make the determination, want to, don't want to, want to, don't want to. And we are making these decisions every day, whether it's what sandwich we want or whether it's how we want to lead the rest of our lives. But the more opportunities we have to have opportunities gives us understanding of the bigger world.
Love
Okay.
it. That's great. Yeah, well, and it's one of the things that speaks to is I posted this recently, and it'll be in your inbox coming up someday soon. Like this idea. So Jerry and I are a member of a community where we've been talking about the distinction between knowledge, learning, and intelligence. And the distinction as it's expressed, in this community, the community that we're in is, these are my words, but I'm close to the ideas are all coming from the Guardian Academy. Knowledge is the acquisition of information, and to Jeff's point, all the information is available. If Google can't tell you, ChatGPT will make something up. So, knowledge is the acquisition of information. Information is really at this point free. But knowledge without application is kind of useless. I mean, it can be fun, it can be interesting, but the learning is when you take knowledge and you apply it, because it's by doing the thing or teaching the thing, sharing it in some way, that you will you'll be testing it for resonance with yourself. You'll be testing your actual knowledge. Do I actually fully understand this thing that I'm doing, talking about? Is this the kind of thing that I want to be? So it's contact with reality is really important. And then this graduate from one of the programs is a psychologist, and I loved his story because he talked about how he works with two different kinds of clientele. One is kind of, underserved, troubled youth that are very good at getting what they want. They have mastered, the art of, of influence or manipulation, or whatever they need to get what they want. They can get what they want. And it's not always by acting in a way that promotes everyone's best interest or health or humanity. And then he works with these, very privileged, intelligent people that can never get what they want. And so he defines intelligence as the ability to get what you want. And so, I worked for a number of years with people that had intellectual disabilities. That's what we called it back then. I don't know what they call it now. Apologies if that's politically incorrect, but I witnessed that firsthand. Like, these folks all had below, an IQ that was very low, yet they were masterfully getting exactly what they wanted from me on a daily, hourly, moment-to-moment basis. So what I have kind of baked onto that is, and I think this is, where it weaves into the art of encore living, is virtue is the ability to get closer to what you want, to get what you want with intention and integrity, with a sense of justice, you know, that it's not at the expense of anyone else, and it doesn't impede anybody else's ability to get what they want. And then finally, wisdom is the ability to recognize that you are entitled to the work, you're entitled to the process, you're not entitled to any of the results, right? Outcomes are, and this speaks to, I think, what Jerry and Jeff were both saying is, you know, the process is a shortcut, and you still might not get what you want, but the process is also the reward. The pursuit of something worth pursuing with intention, with integrity, is kind of its own reward. And you know, the Bhagavad Gita, I can't say it, never mind, you know the book. You are entitled to your labor, but not the fruits of your labor. And it all circling around this idea of vocation. So I love all that, Jeff.
That's also in the Old Testament.
It's
You are entitled to
actually
your
a part
labor,
of,
but not the fruits of your labor.
it's actually a part of almost every spiritual tradition or philosophical tradition that has persevered to modern times. Penny, I see you writing notes.
Yeah, well, I'm very interested, and when you talked before about learning and knowledge and just all the exposure to being aware, because I think what I'm becoming aware of is that I can talk to somebody and they can be agreeing with me and they're not aware of what I'm talking about. So, I mean, they think they are, but they're not. So I'm thinking like, okay, it seems like we need a certain resilience as well as curiosity, and be more comfortable with vulnerability, because part of the not being aware is the resistance of not being stupid or whatever it is. So the resistance happens in that not awareness. And I see it particularly, I think I'm beginning to see it, particularly in CEOs about fundraising. And I saw it with that woman I was talking with yesterday, because I could begin to see, which I liked, because I could begin to see when she really wasn't aware. She wasn't connecting. You know, I think we can see that.
Well, this is a great, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because as you are, you know, in the midlife moment, trying to define what is the identity that I want to be stepping into, what is, you know, what am I wanting to emerge into, what is it that I want to become? You have to be able to embrace adversity, or embrace uncertainty, and you have to be able to navigate adversity. And that means that you have to, have, a lot of empathy. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to have you may very well have to renegotiate your inner dialogue around what failure is, and what your relationship is with failure. But here's a tool that I think can be helpful. It certainly has helped me. And this ties into what Jerry and Jeff are saying around, you don't know what you don't know. That's the uncertainty element, right? In order to do something, you have to have some sort of assertion. I assert that this is true. I assert that this is my next step. I assert that this is like my offer, that this is my audience, what have you. Assertions are way, way different than assumptions. And we live in a world that rewards assumptions. If my dogmatic belief in what I believe is the same as yours, then, our assumptions are validated, verified, and we can go on deluding ourselves with, all sorts of false assumptions. But an assertion is something that you believe to be true, that you hold loosely, and you share because what you are hoping for is the feedback, the reflection, the questions, the criticism that will help you formulate your next best assertion. And then you share that, and you keep sharing. You're putting your assertions into the world, not because you seek validation or that you're just trying to verify that that you're right, but you're holding it up, actually hoping that someone will share a perspective, poke a hole, share an alternative assertion or an alternative approach, so that you can continue to build stronger assertions. And that micro step process not only will help you gain more clarity, it will also, it also breeds confidence. And, you know, one of the things about this journey that we've all kind of signed up for is my boys still say this to me: "Pa, don't be a weenie." Right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for people that aren't, you know, it requires a little bit of courage. And you know, there's this old idea that fortune favors the bold. And as you're trying to clarify what your path is, and you're you know, narrowing the channel of that path, what I have found happen over and over and over again with client after client, this is my own experience as well, and this is the experience of a lot of people I talk to that are in this space, is that this idea of emergence also, that future you, that, you know, your destiny, whatever you want to call it, is actually then starts to pull you towards what it is. And we are, that's very foreign to us, because we are used to pushing our way into what we want. But the more time you can spend clarifying and getting that confidence and continuing to take steps forward, the reward is often that destiny will recognize that you're doing the work, the real work, and you'll actually feel this sense of being pulled toward the work that you're meant to do now, which is as good a definition of purpose that I can think of. Any final reflections before we wrap this up? And before we go, I just want to remind everyone that Jerry is hosting a bonus training on his process for creating content in a way that is stress-free and almost effortless, more effortless. And that's going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. But any reflections on this conversation before we hop off?
Is the link to what Jerry's doing the one we used today?
Yes, same Zoom room, always a Zoom room.
Okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
One of my favorite shows, along with the black and white Superman. Anybody else? Any final reflections?
Yeah,
Thank
probably
you.
just
It was
one.
deep today.
Yeah, good conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'd like to talk to Iris after, when you have time, because I've got some thoughts about the woman I talked with yesterday.
awesome. Go ahead, Jerry. You were going to say something.
Yeah, Penny, just about communication. Just through reading these books on cultures that only have an oral history. When you've only got an oral history, when people are communicating to each other, the recipient is not even thinking about a reply until they've fully heard, you know, what is being said. But for us, you know, we're always thinking of what we're going to be saying before we've actually heard. You know, so that was an interesting distinction, and that's another clash point between societies. But you know, so that's galvanized my resolve to really to stop and think and improve my active listening skills. So
Yeah.
That's the last parting thing.
Awesome. Yes, active listening is a skill definitely worth cultivating. Here's what I heard you say. Did I get that right? Is there anything else? Get all that before you get on to your next point. All right, gang, this was fantastic. Thank you for putting on your hip waders and going into the deep end with me, or the manure, whatever it was for you. I'm grateful for your time and attention and your reflections and questions. We'll see Jerry tomorrow, those of us that can be here. And for those of you that are also in the coaching business prescription community, no call next week. We're going to actually have that call on the 5th Wednesday of this month, because I'm offline entirely next week. So with that, I'll look forward to seeing you.
And nothing tomorrow, Friday.
Still doing co-working tomorrow in the difference maker community, but no group coaching on Friday.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, gang. Enjoy your day. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.